Hello, Shadowcat back, and it's time for me to tank my channel because I've been doing super well, and now it's time for me to inject opinions that nobody asked for. Why? Because it's my channel, and I can do what I want with it. And also because, well, let's be honest, we all need somewhere to vent, and this is my place to vent. I don't really have anyone to vent to, so yeah, this is what I do. So, if you're going to unsubscribe after this, then glad I had you this long. I'm expecting the numbers to tank, so I'm not going to be terribly surprised or hurt. You're not going to hurt my feelings at all. But in light of recent events, there is something that I desperately need to talk about, and I think it's something that I have mentioned in passing before, but now it needs to have a bit of a spotlight. And this, of course, comes in light of recent events involving some YouTube personalities and Elon Musk of all people. And I'm not a news channel, so the fact that I'm talking about Elon Musk is like, why am I doing this? Because it involves Elon Musk, it involves Twitter. I don't even use Twitter. I don't care about Twitter. I don't even care about him that much. But as they say, small minds talk about people, and big minds talk about ideas. And this is definitely going to be an idea thing, not a people thing. But before we can get into any of that, I have a bit of a story to share with you, and this is a story that comes from history. Now, mind you, this is on my side monitor, and my eyes are not good, so I'm doing my best to kind of read this, and pardon me as I adjust my microphone just a little bit. But I'm on the EnglishHeritage.co.uk webpage. And the reason for this is because I wanted to bring up a historical story. This is the story of Thomas Becket, Henry II, and Dover Castle. I'm going to skip the summary because I just want to cover the story in its full. So bear with me as we read. If you need to get a snack, go ahead, pause this video right now, get yourself a snack, get yourself a blankie. It's story time with Kitty. So, the king and the archbishop. In 1162, Henry II, King of England, Duke of Normandy, and Aquitaine and Court of Anjou, I don't even know these words, I'm not English, made his chancellor and close friend Thomas Becket Archbishop of Canterbury, as Chancellor Becket had proved devoted to Henry's interests, and the king thought he was just the man to help him extend the royal authority over the church. It's difficult for us today to grasp the extraordinary status that the church then had, in addition to its spiritual authority and near monopoly over literacy and education. It got richer with each passing year as the faithful gave it money and property. It was controlled from Rome, and ordained churchmen could only be tried by church courts. No matter what crime they had committed, Henry wanted to bring them under the authority of the crown. However, the king was to be unpleasantly surprised. Once in office, Becket went over to the church's side heart and soul. He became convinced that protecting it from any earthly authority was a sacred duty. When Becket refused to agree with Henry's proposed legal reforms, he was forced to flee to France in 1165. 5 years later, however, Pope Alexander III brokered a compromise, and in 1170, Becket returned to England. But the row soon broke out again when Becket excommunicated 3 churchmen, including the Archbishop of York, for crowning Henry's eldest son as joint king, a task that should have fallen to Becket himself. When Henry, in Normandy at the time, heard of Becket's action, he exploded with rage. He berated his household for being a pack of, quote, miserable curs and traitors, who stood by idly while a, quote, low-born priest treated their king with contempt. Hearing this, 4 of his household knights saw an opportunity to prove their loyalty. They left the court in secret, crossed to England, and reached Canterbury on the 29th of December. They tried to arrest Becket on the king's behalf, but he refused to come quietly. So they resolved to make the arrest by force as night fell. They caught up with the Archbishop as he entered the cathedral while the monks were chanting Vespers. I don't know what that necessarily means, but whatever. Becket clung to a column, the confrontation became violent, and the knights cut him down with their swords. Shocked by what they had done, they fled into the night. The murder shook everyone, especially Henry himself. Becket had been a controversial figure in life, but in death he was regarded as a martyr. For the rights of the church and the people began to pray to him. Pilgrims started to visit his tomb and the cathedral's vast crypt. People who had prayed to him reported miracles, and in 1173 the Pope declared Becket a saint. The situation could hardly have been more embarrassing for Henry. This, of course, led to a great crisis in his regime, and I don't want to get into that because while I'm sure it's very interesting to someone, I'm personally not a history person, it's not at all the point that I want to cover today. This is more often recited as the "won't somebody rid me of this meddlesome priest" incident. And that's because this is a historical incident and a lot of things get changed, summarized, forgotten along the way. Most people will say that King Henry was traveling somewhere and a priest kept bothering him, so he just said, "Will somebody rid me of this priest?" and his knights killed them. This is the actual story, but it's more or less the same thing, where he offhandedly called him a cur and a traitor. And of course, what do you do with traitors? You execute them. And so 4 of his knights took it upon themselves, believing that they had the full right and authority of the king to do this. They tried to arrest him. When he refused to be arrested, they killed him. There are some modern-day parallels that you can draw to this, but I don't want to talk about those today. No, I don't. Instead, what I would like to do is bring up a new story. And this is an actual news story from 2017. I'm pulling this from Wikipedia just for the sake of brevity and convenience, but, I mean, as with anything in Wikipedia, you can go down to the references. There are many coming from, what is this? This is archived from CBS News. This one comes from the Wichita Eagle, etc., etc. There are many sources. This is a well-documented story, and this is the 2017 Wichita swatting. And the more astute among you may know where I'm going with this. It reads in the summary, because I'm not going to read the entire webpage. On December 28th, which is like a week from when I'm recording this, week and a half, 2017, a fatal swatting incident occurred in Wichita, Kansas, the United States, obviously. During an online dispute between Casey Viner and Shane Gaskill regarding the video game Call of Duty, Viner threatened to have Gaskill swatted. Gaskill responded by giving him a false address for the residence, one that was occupied by an uninvolved person, Andrew Finch. Viner then asked Tyler Barris to make the required fraudulent call to initiate the swatting. Wichita police responded to the address, and as Finch was exiting his house, police officer Justin Rapp fatally shot him. Now, Barris pled guilty to involuntary manslaughter, as well as many other charges unrelated to the incidents. There's a whole lot here that honestly is not important to what we're talking about today. The important takeaway here is that somebody called in a swatting, which swatting, for those who are uninitiated or simply don't know, is a fraudulent call made to police about a crime in progress of the severity that would require a SWAT team response. So we're talking bomb threats, hostage situations, things of that nature. The idea, of course, is that when the SWAT team comes in all hopped up on adrenaline and ready for a fight, they're going to be twitchy enough to shoot whoever comes out the door. For example, this man who simply walked out his front door and was shot by police. Now, there was a little bit more to it, but regardless of the details, the fact was this man had done nothing wrong. He walked out of his house, which he owned, and he was on his property, which gave him every single right, including castle doctrine rights, because I believe that is a thing in Kansas. And the police shot him because, well, somebody had called in this swatting. Now, why do I talk about this? Swatting has become a much, much bigger problem in today's world, and this is one of the two things I'm going to be talking about today, and the two things are interrelated. Swatting has become an issue. It has always been an issue, and for the longest time, this was the realm of online stuff, because you would have YouTubers or Twitch streamers or things like that who would get swatted. Some people thought it was good fun, and most of the time it was fairly... what's the word that I want here? It was fairly mild, because if you're a Twitch streamer or something, you're sitting there at your computer, you got headphones on, you might not even realize what's going on, and so the police kick in your door, they find you sitting in a chair, they arrest you on the spot and realize that, hold on, there's actually nothing going on here, and usually nobody gets hurt. The key word there being usually, because over time, people did get hurt. Now, a lot of people recognized this from the start and said, I know exactly what's going on here. I know exactly what they're trying to do. They are trying to hurt people. These random anons on the internet are trying to hurt people, and they're using the police as a proxy to do so. Once people started to get hurt, well, then it opened up an entirely new avenue. See, murder is illegal. It's illegal in every state in the country. Murder by proxy, if you hire a hitman, is also illegal. I don't know exactly what the statute would be, but you cannot solicit somebody to commit a crime in general, and to solicit someone to commit murder, I believe carries with it both the solicitation of a crime and the murder charge itself. So they compound. But what if the person doing the murdering was, number one, a state actor with state protections, and number two, ignorant of the crime? Now, there is the saying that ignorance of the law is no excuse for breaking the law, and this is true. But what if, say, somebody was robbing a bank, okay? They robbed a bank, and they're on the run, on foot, the police are after them, they duck around a corner, and you just happen to be standing there. What happens if they realize they're not going to get away, and so they toss the bag to you? You, just out of reaction, catch the bag. And the police see you're the one holding the bag. Have you committed a crime? Well, the answer is no. You weren't a part of the crime. You weren't knowledgeable of the crime. You're not even aiding the crime. You just happened to be at the wrong place at the wrong time. Such is the case of these people in swattings. Now, as I said before, swatting used to be just relegated to the whole online sphere. It was, Twitch streamers, YouTube streamers, things like that. But once people realized that it could be weaponized, they have broadened the scope. Now, I follow the YouTube channel Timcast. I'm going to keep my opinions separate because they're not all rosy about it, and they're also not very important. But the point is that Timcast, starting earlier in this year, hosted a politician. And if I remember right, it was a politician by the name of Marjorie Taylor Greene. I don't know much about her. I don't even know if she actually won anything or if she's even in Congress. But the point is that they hosted her. And she is one of those people that is hated. I believe she's on the right. I believe there's all kinds of people that have called for violence against her, and they want her just absolutely murdered. And that was, I believe, the start of when Timcast started to get swatted. Like, the day after they hosted her, they got swatted, and police had to come in, and they cleared everyone out of the building, and it was a thing. And they brought in the SWAT team, they brought in officers from like 5 different counties around the place, they had armored cars, everything, the whole shebang. It was a thing. And obviously there was nothing wrong there, so everyone was safe, everyone was fine, nobody got hurt, and the police went on their way afterwards. I don't remember how long it was after that, but then they got swatted again. And the police had to come in, do the same thing again. They had to clear everybody out. Again, everything was fine. And then they got swatted again because people realized that if you keep sending these armed police, sooner or later, somebody's going to get shot. Maybe they decide that they're going to resist the police this time because they're tired of having their home violated. Maybe. Maybe the police are just extra twitchy, or maybe they're pissed off because they keep getting brought out there. Who knows? But sooner or later, all it's going to take is one accident, one bullet. One bullet is all it takes. This guy in Wichita, he was shot once. And he died. Because one bullet in the right place is a kill shot. You hear a lot of people that say bullets are not as dangerous as you think. Well, that is absolutely true. If you get shot in the arm or the leg, you're probably going to be fine. If you get shot in the gut, you're also probably going to be fine. But there are some kill shots. A leg shot through the femoral artery is a kill shot. A heart shot is a kill shot. A brain shot is a kill shot. Just because most gunshots are very survivable doesn't mean that some of them cannot kill you. In the case of Wichita, I don't remember where he was shot, but he was shot and he was killed. And so that became a tool. In addition to, I believe, Timcast being up to, I think, 20 swattings, and by the way, it doesn't work anymore. After the first dozen, the police no longer even show up. They send an officer, their officer meets with the compound security, and they agree nothing's going on. So, I mean, you ran that one. The little boy cried wolf too many times, and now no one cares. In addition to that, as I understand it, Marjorie Taylor Greene has also been swatted about a half a dozen times, and now it's being expanded into other members of Congress. Other members of Congress are now getting swatting calls at their homes, at their offices, etc. This has also expanded to police officers at their homes, to judges at their homes, to basically anyone who you don't like, especially if they're of a high enough prominence. If enough people in the public don't like them, you can almost guarantee that there will be a swatting against them at some point, because people have found out that this is a way to kill people. Now, it's not guaranteed every time, because you cannot guarantee that somebody's going to pull the trigger every time, but there's a chance. And just like any game of chance, if you do it enough, sometimes you win. And it works like this. Somebody, like in this Wichita swatting, will simply use a spoofing program on their computer or an automated dialer or something like that to call in and make it look like a number is coming from a legitimate in-state source. If you call from a New York area code to a California county, they're probably not going to do it. So they change their numbers. It's not hard. Anybody with a little bit of technical knowledge can do it. The problem is that the government is very slow to learn and very slow to respond. Which is why these things have been growing in number. Because for every one department that gets one of these swatting calls, learns what it is, and tries to work out a policy on how to deal with it, every single other station is not getting that memo, and they also have no idea what to do. There's also the fact that for, every 10 swattings or so, there's a legitimate call. There's a reason why the SWAT team is usually required to show up to every call regardless of what it is, because in the event that it is an actual real event, they don't have a choice. They are legally obligated to go. It's their job. This isn't one of those cases where you can say, do the police have a duty to protect? Which, as a matter of law, they generally don't. Yeah, whole serve and protect? They're not serving and they're not protecting. Makes you wonder why we had the police in the first place. But that's a different tangent. Anyway, they are required to show up to these swatting events. they don't know how to deal with it. They don't know how to tell a real one from a fake one. I don't necessarily know how you could tell a real one from a fake one. I don't know that there is a way. Except for in the case of like Timcast, where they know that if you're getting called out here for the 20th time, yeah, it's probably fake. But for everyone else, no, somebody has to show up. And that's the only guarantee you're getting. So you make the call, the SWAT team shows up, and you cross your fingers and hope that somebody gets shot. I mean, if you're the person calling the SWAT in. Obviously, everyone else is saying, please don't. And there is no amount of training you can put people through to fix this. The fact is that if people are walking into a situation where they think they're entering a war zone, they're going to be geared up for a war zone. And if it is an actual swatting emergency, hesitation can get you killed. So I can't even say, well, they need to be more hesitant, because no. If it's an actual incident, they need to respond to it with force. That's just the way it is. So, how do we deal with this? Well, the obvious answer is that we need to deal with it at the root of the problem, and that is swatting itself. Now this, fortunately, is where there is some good news. The good news is that swatting has become a big enough issue that some people are taking notice, especially when you start swatting the people that actually make the laws. You start doing that, you start getting laws against it, and these are happening. There are places where, at least where the swatting cases are happening, they are drafting laws that are declaring any swatting to basically be at a minimum manslaughter. However, I wonder if I can find this here. Let's see. In this case, in the Wichita, Barris pled guilty for involuntary manslaughter and many other charges. I can't really get a whole lot of detail here because I can't read that well, and I don't want to sift through all of this text. Point is, involuntary manslaughter at a minimum, but I would argue you could go as far as first-degree homicide. Especially if you're the one who made the call. Absolutely. I absolutely agree with that. I would also go ahead and throw solicitation for a crime in there. Even if the officer wasn't willing, wasn't knowledgeable, you're still calling in somebody to do the job for you. So there we go. And that's about all I have to say about swatting itself. But that's not the only thing that I want to talk about today. That is one of the things that I wanted to cover because I want that as a foundation. Now, I'm going to change gears here. I'm going to switch tracks. But trust me, we're going to come back to this. So don't forget it just yet. I'm going to switch tracks and I want to talk about Elon Musk and Twitter because that has been big news as of late. Now everyone is talking about it for different reasons. What I want to talk about is the latest round of bannings because a lot of people have been going after Elon Musk when he said Twitter is going to be the new free speech platform. Which, to his credit, he's been doing a good job of. However, over the last 4 or 5 days, he has been on a banning spree. Now, interestingly enough, the first round of bannings that he did, and this was a while back, was people who were impersonating him. Now, Twitter's got rules on impersonation where you have to put like parody tags and stuff. I don't know. I don't use Twitter. But he said, you have to do it this way if you're going to try and impersonate someone so people know it's not you. A whole bunch of people then changed their names, changed their avatars to his, and pretended to be him, and then started spewing all kinds of racist and sexist, homophobe, all that stuff. All the bad words in the English and German language. They started throwing all of that, pretending to be him, and he banned them all. And honestly, I don't care. I think that impersonating somebody is generally bad. If you do it on a credit form, it's called identity theft. So how is this that much different? With identity theft, you go to prison. These people got banned from Twitter. I'd say that so far, we're batting 1,000. The punishment fits the crime. Lately, however, though, he has been banning a new group of people, and these people have been using various services to track flights. Now, Well, I don't have all the details on this. Let me tell you what I do know and explain what's been going on. There are people out there who have absolutely nothing better to do with their time, who are motivated and have the skills to track flights. Now, sometimes this is easy. If I hop on a flight, I can look up every single commercial flight going on in the country right now, especially if I know the airline and the flight number. It's not hard. It's public information. As a matter of fact, you don't even have to leave Google to do it. You just type the information in and it pops up right there. What they're doing, however, though, is they're looking up flight information of high-value targets. Whether these be politicians, whether they be celebrities, or they be any other person of significant wealth and or power. This has been going on for a long time. If you wanted to track the flight of, say, Kim Kardashian, because I heard her in the news earlier, you can do that. There is somebody tracking her flights. Every time she sets foot on an aircraft, people know where she's going. And this is not limited to commercial aircraft. This also includes private aircraft because every single aircraft has to file a flight plan. They have to notify air control of where they're going. And since all of air control needs to know where every plane is, that means that information is more or less public. It's not hard to find it. So why am I bringing this up? Well, a lot of these got banned from Twitter. Now, why did they get banned from Twitter? Actually, there's a really good reason for that, and the reason is simple. Elon Musk, being one of the richest people in the world, of course, has his own private jet. And as far as I can tell, it gets a lot of miles out of it. It goes all over the place. Just recently, one of the places that it went was somewhere he was not. As I understand it, and somebody can correct me on the details in the comments below if you need to, but his wife and child, I forget if he has a son or daughter, I think it's a son. But anyway, his wife and child went somewhere. They flew there. And naturally, one of the accounts on Twitter was tracking this flight. So when the flight touched down in wherever it was, and his wife and child were in a car going somewhere else, some random person who was looking for Elon Musk ran out in front of the car, stopped the car because they didn't want to run this person over, then proceeded to jump up on the hood and start threatening his wife and child. Why? Well, because there are a lot of people out there right now that are pissed off at Elon Musk, and Elon Musk has come to the realization, finally, that there are actually people out there that want him dead. Now, in this instance, nothing bad happened. But that is not a guarantee. Yes, nothing bad happened this time. What if the next time the person who jumps up on the hood of that car has a gun? Or, what if they don't have a gun, maybe they have a bat, but what if instead of one of them, there's 20? We saw what can happen when people mob a car a couple of years ago during the Summer of Love, when people were literally dragged from their vehicles and beaten in the streets for driving through a place that had a crowd in it. Well, what if the crowd comes to you? What if somebody is following your movements and they approach you, surround you, and do whatever they want to you? As it turns out, we actually do have a word for this. It's called stalking. And it's a word that I'm surprised we haven't heard a whole lot of lately, because there's a whole lot of stalking going on, especially with all these flight trackers. Now, interestingly enough, some of the information that came out today regarding this, and I don't know if I'm going to get this video out today or not, so let me just say that I'm recording this video on Thursday the 16th? No, Friday? What is today? No, today is Friday, Friday the 16th. I'm tired. Yeah, so this information just came out today that in the case of Elon Musk and the people that are tracking him, apparently something that you can do on a private jet, and I didn't know this, is you can actually encrypt your flight number and identification. It's something that they can do so that the air control towers will know who you are because it's tied to your flight plan and all that. But the general public could look at that, and instead of saying, you know, Airbus 6982, it'll just give a random number of letters and numbers, and no normal person would know what it is. This is important because the people that are following Elon Musk's plane, at least, saw that it had been encrypted and then managed to decrypt it. So we're now adding an entirely new layer on this stalking. To put this in more grounded terms that most of us could understand, what if you were receiving phone calls from an ex, okay? Maybe you broke it up, maybe you went away, and you said, look, I'm changing my phone number. So they came to your house, and you say, fine, I'm moving. I changed my number, I'm changing my address. Now what if you decide that you're going to move to an address, you contact the phone company because, you know, the phone company still prints a phone book, and say, I do not want to be listed in the phone book. Which is a thing you can do. You can be unlisted in the phone book. You can be excluded from the white pages. But you say, I changed my number, I changed my address, I'm going to be unlisted, I do not want to be contacted by anyone. But this person, who you broke up with, they said, okay, I'm going to track all real estate sales. Now, who bought this house? This person bought it, it was sold by this person. Now, what agency did they use? Okay, so they used this agency. Did this agency also buy any other houses in the recent times? Maybe. Can I follow this property deed? Yes, I can. Was this deed recently transferred? Yes. Whose name is on it? Ah, there's my person. So there's the agency, there's the deed, there's the person. I now have their address again. And so, after having changed numbers and changed address and moved to maybe even a different city, maybe even a different state, you get a knock on the door one day and it's your ex who has tracked you down this far. Now tell me, would that not be just a little bit terrifying? Would that be a little disturbing? Now consider Elon Musk. After declaring that you can't track flights, and having them still doing it on other sites, after hiding his flight information and having them decrypt it, they're still doing it, they're still tracking him, they're still following him. It begins to put things in a different perspective. What is going on here is something called doxing, that is D-O-X-X-I-N-G. Now, I can't exactly tell you where the root of that word came from. I don't know. A little bit curious now. What if I could find out? Hold on. We're going to do some live research here. Doxing. Can I get a an etymology on this? Wikipedia. I feel like I should go to Urban Dictionary, actually. Publicly providing person... I'm not getting this from Wikipedia. Give me the Urban Dictionary. They know what they're talking about. Urban Dictionary. See, we're doing this live. So, doxing, by way of name dropping, is a document dropping. So, dox, as in D-O-C-S, however, it's been leaded for D-O-X-X, and that makes sense. By public exposing someone's real name or address to the internet who has taken pains to keep them secret, also spelled doxing with one X, but it should have two X's. If you're spelling it with one X, you're doing it wrong, Wikipedia. Yes, I'm calling you out. Anyway, this is doxing. Now, why am I talking about doxing? Well, I want to go back now to the original story that I read you. The story about Thomas Becket, Henry II, and his murder. And the reason for that is because Henry II never actually ordered his knights to go and arrest or kill him. This is where the story of the "won't somebody rid me of this meddlesome priest" comes in, because it was no direct order given. He never said, please go do this. What he did say is, I really just wish he would go away, and then somebody took that literally and went to do it. And we saw what happened. It was terrible. I mean, I don't know the full history, but I do know that the murder of Becket absolutely ruined Henry II. I know that much at least. So, why am I bringing this up in the same video as swatting and this story? Well, why dox people? You dox people to put their information out there. Now, in a void, let's just say that there's only two people in existence, it's you and them, and you shout, "Hey, this person's over there!" Well, what good does that do? It does absolutely nothing. And hell, if you went and said there's 10 people in the world, you're all off doing your own thing, and you said, "Hey, that person's over there." Who cares? We're all doing our own thing. But nowadays, we have millions of people, and just by the law of statistics, you're going to have a group of people who are either so ideologically driven or have nothing else better to do that when you say, that person is over there, they're going to say, okay, I'm going to go over there too. Now, having them go over there on its own is not necessarily a problem. And I say that because we've had this problem forever. Think of the paparazzi. Any person who has any level of fame whatsoever knows that the paparazzi follows you everywhere. They try to follow you into the bathroom, they try to follow you into their home, they've got cameras and microphones, and they will do just about anything to get a story. For a long time, this was an annoyance. But now picture this. What if instead of the paparazzi with cameras and microphones, it was instead a group of people who hate you? And I don't mean hate you like saying, I hate broccoli, which I do. I really hate broccoli, but you know what I would do? I avoid broccoli. What if, however, you caught somebody who hated broccoli enough that they went and set a farm on fire because the farm grows broccoli? Now we're getting into the subject that I want to discuss today. Because just like this one guy found Elon Musk's wife and child, jumped on the hood and started threatening them, you have people out there who hate him enough to hurt him. You have people out there who hate him enough to hurt his family. You have people out there enough who hate politicians enough to hurt them. Just recently, it's not been that long, when Roe v. Wade was overturned in the US, and by the way, I got a video coming up on that one too, that somebody went to a Supreme Court justice's house carrying a gun, ammunition, a knife, a taser, a crowbar, duct tape, and zip ties. He thought better of it before he actually did anything, because I think he realized that even if he pulls this off, he's dead. He may actually kill a Supreme Court justice, but he wasn't willing to trade his life. So he turned himself into the police and admitted that, yeah, he traveled from California to Virginia to kill a Supreme Court justice. Why do you think people would not do the same thing to someone who is less than a Supreme Court justice? It was just recently that Elon Musk announced that he was ceasing all of his public appearances. No more signings, no more handshaking, no more anything, because the risk to his life was simply too great anymore. And it is. It absolutely is. And I think it's a smart move for him, because all it takes is one person in a crowd with a gun. I think he's figured that out. And so now, what's happening? Well, you have all these people who are doxing his plane. You have people that are literally trying to follow his every move. And they're posting it publicly. Why? Because every single one of these people think that they're Henry II. And every single one of them knows that when they post Elon Musk's location, or a Kardashian's location, or Brad Pitt's location, or a senator's location, or a House member's location, or a judge's location. They know that if they post that, there is a chance that one of their knights will come and rid them of their meddlesome priest. Maybe they'll go there and they'll do it in person. Maybe somebody went to Elon Musk's car, jumped on the hood. Maybe they'll call in a swatting. They did it with the Congress people. Maybe they'll say, hey, this judge is currently eating in this restaurant tonight. I'm going to spoof my phone number and call in a SWAT. I'm going to say there is a mass shooter in this restaurant. The SWAT team will show up. They'll be kitted out, ready for war. And maybe when they show up and a panic ensues because it's full of civilians who are going to panic because people panic, it's what they do, maybe this judge will get killed in the crossfire. See, this is where we're at. We know that it's almost impossible to get away with murder these days. There is almost no way that you can just go out, kill somebody, and get away with it. We have too many police. We have too good technology. You're not going to get away with it. But maybe you don't have to actually do it. Because if you can get somebody else to do it for you, they can eat the consequences, you get what you want, and all you had to do was sacrifice one stupid pawn. Because that's the game that we're playing now. It's a game of pawns. And by and large, it's been pawns of the left. It's pawns that are sent out into the streets to protest, even when that protest means flipping cars and lighting buildings on fire. It's been pawns of the left that get called on when they say, here's someone's location, go confront them. It's all about sending your pawns out to be sacrificed, because if you can trade a pawn for a bishop, you've gained. If you can trade a pawn for a rook, you've gained. And it's all about taking away all of the other side's biggest pieces while sacrificing your lowest pieces, so that when the game reaches its end stage, you still have all of your best pieces and they have no defenses left. This is what politics has become in the US, and I would dare say in most of Western civilization in the modern day. It's no longer about ideas. I did a video a while back, because it's been a long time since I've done one of these, on the Civil War that we're in. And we are absolutely in a civil war. But this is a civil war on par with the Cold War. It's not armies in the street. People are not marching. There's no militias that are active yet. This is clandestine cloak and dagger stuff. This is how much can I do indirectly? What is the highest impact, lowest effort stuff that I can do? Because as long as I have lower effort, my fingerprints aren't all over it, perhaps I can influence something. And they are. Believe me, this stuff works. It is working magnificently, otherwise people wouldn't be doing it. But while it may be working now, it's not sustainable. Because one of two things is going to happen. Number one, this shit ends. And maybe, just maybe, we can go back to some semblance of civility. But if it doesn't end, it escalates. You can only stay the course for so long. Whether that be a year, whether it be 10 years, sooner or later, it's going to change. Nothing lasts forever. The universe itself is entropy. Something has to give. So which is it going to be? Ideally, we find ways to mitigate this. I don't know how. The only way that I can think of to really do this is we need to find some way to crack down on things like swatting and doxing. The unfortunate part of that is, while I don't necessarily know the form it's going to take, I do suspect that the only way to do so will be a vast restriction of personal privacy and freedom. I'm not exactly a big fan of that. The other option, the harder one, lies with us. Because there's no law that can really fix this. If you were to suddenly make it so everyone's identity is known online, you can't spoof anything, we know who all the doxers are, we know who all the swatters are, you're not going to change people, though. They're still going to want to do these things, and if you take away one tool, they will fashion another. Don't forget that in feudal Japan, you know all those weird and fancy Chinese and Japanese weapons used in different martial arts? All those weird looking things? Don't forget that most of those were fashioned from farm tools. From trowels and plows and scythes into weapons. If you take away doxing and swatting, they will find another tool and they will weaponize it. And you won't even recognize it as a weapon until it has killed. Right now, we can recognize the weapons for what they are. What we need to do is we need to deal with the people behind the weapons. Because while taking away the tools may stop them in the short term, it's not going to do anything in the long term. This is one of the things that people who rail against guns fail to understand. They think that taking away the guns will end all problems. No, it won't. You couldn't take all the guns away even if you could, and if you were able to, people would pick up bows and swords again. You have to fix the culture behind it. And our culture is sick. Our culture is sick, it is cancerous, and it is dying. The only way for us to actually fix this is to deal with the cancers that plague our current society. And I don't know how we do that, honestly. I don't think there is a way to do so. I think we're in stage 4 cancer at this point. We may be able to survive something. I don't know what form that will take, but I do know that there are some parts that are just so far gone, you're never going to save them regardless. Something about California, not getting involved in that. But I do know that what is going on currently is a problem. Somebody needs to explain it for what it actually is, for what's going on, why it's going on, and where it's going to go in the future. And that's what I was hoping I could do today, because I needed to get this off my chest. So many people are talking about the news, but none of them are explaining the why or the how behind it. So that's what I'm here for. I'm here to educate you so that you can understand the news when you actually listen to it, instead of just listening to the news and saying, I don't understand how this applies. So hopefully I've done that today. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to cut this off because this is getting kind of long. Again, I have other videos coming soon in the same measure because I have other things I need to talk about. And my channel's been doing really well. I'm sitting at like 194 subscribers, so I guess it's time to cut that back down to 100 or so. I look forward to seeing how many people unsubscribe after this. It'll be fun. Anyway, if you want to hear more of this, make sure you subscribe. Make sure you hit the bell icon. Subscribe especially now because I need somebody to replace the people that are going to unsubscribe afterwards. If you know somebody else who might be interested in hearing this or needs to hear this, maybe you can just tie them to a chair, Clockwork Orange style, and play this for them. Share this video with them. Then come back, leave a like, leave a comment down below, and I'll see you next time for the next direct message. And until then, take care.